America, thanks to some very smart people many years ago. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But first of all, we begin today with some of the, if you would, threats to the Constitution that we all hold dear. And by threats, I mean some of the people on the very far left, including one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who prides herself on being a socialist who wants to redistribute wealth while, of course, running around in a private jet. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now officially under investigation, and that's a good thing to hear on 4th of July. The other big news is that Mamdani is also possibly, should he decide to disobey the law, facing arrest. Yeah. And then the other biggie is Letitia James, who actually is finding herself in some trouble of her own doing, right? As she parades around in New York City with the guy who wants to tax the rich and tax the white, his words, not mine. He's made that very, very clear. As she parades around with him, her stock's fallen really, really fast, not just because of her political alliances, but because of some alleged problems that she may have along the way. We're going to get into all of that today. But first, again, if you haven't heard, AOC is under investigation. Sandy Cortez, and it's not because of where she came from, which is a whole other thing up for debate, right? You say you're from the Bronx, but it turns out you're actually from Tony Westchester. Kind of a difference, just a little teeny smidge of a difference. But AOC is under investigation because of a staffer that she had working for her that is believed to have been here illegally or extended the visa or something, but whatever it was not okay. That combined with, telling everybody, here's how you do it, right? Here's how you avoid ICE. Here's what happens if ICE shows up. The fact that she did these things are now causing her to be under investigation, while simultaneously Donald Trump is saying, you know what, this Mamdani, should he become mayor of New York and actually try to stand in the way of ICE, he too will be under investigation. It's important to think about, right? Again, because there are constitutional rules protecting the federal government, which enables them to protect the rest of the country when it comes to the issue of who's here, who's not. Immigration rules, yeah, they matter. Here's Donald Trump saying exactly what he would do if this guy gets elected in New York City.
Mr. President, your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zohran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest.
Yeah, he's probably feeling pretty good right now. He's just got the big, beautiful bill that went through. We also just got news that broke late yesterday that the U.S. Supreme Court made the decision that the Trump administration could, in fact, deport people that were here illegally, had committed crimes, deport people to a country that they are actually not from. This would be to South Sudan, a group of migrants that had been held for weeks at a military base. So this order coming from the High Court, again, allowing for the administration to deport certain migrants to countries other than their homeland with very little notice. So causing some surprise by some, but the Supreme Court making the decision that the administration had the right to do that. In other words, you have somebody that's in the country illegally that has committed a crime and their country does not want them back. What do? You got to find some way to get them out. And as much as the AOCs and the Mamdanis of the world and Leticia and LaMonica want to sit there and cry and cry and cry and think that this is so heartless, Kellyanne said it well the other day. For some of you, you've seen this clip. I just want to turn it into a meme because we got to remind ourselves of this and the left all day long. Listen.
These are criminals, and I wish the Democrats would start focusing on the word criminal.
Criminal. Okay. So when you have people that have committed crimes that are here in the country illegally and their country doesn't want to take them back, the Supreme Court now making the decision that it doesn't matter. You know what? We can send them wherever we want. So that's a kind of a big deal and a big win for Donald Trump. The other big win, of course, that he's coming off of is none other than the big, beautiful bill.
On this vote, the yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
Right? So it's happening. It's happening. Lots is happening. And so I go back to sort of the retaking of the nation, if you would. You saw that certainly with the election. He won the Electoral College, he won the House, and people are really speaking up on a variety of things. One was immigration. So that's all coming to a fruition right now. And then the other was the economy. And guess what? We got good news on the economy. Good news that even CNN, if you would, had to admit, CNN actually saying that this was a pretty darn big win. And they're not wrong. They're totally right. This is more in the way of jobs than we thought we were going to get. And not only did they blow past expectations, you also had the unemployment rate coming down, all while inflation's coming down, all while gasoline prices are coming down, all while the stock market is now going up. Listen.
You expected some of this, but this is better than expected?
Yeah, Sarah, it is. Look, this jobs market is like the Energizer Bunny. Every single time we expect it to run out of steam, it just keeps going and going. So these new numbers show that the U.S. economy added 147,000 jobs in June. That was well ahead of the expectation of about 118,000, well ahead of some whispers that we heard on Wall Street of a sub 100,000 number. So this is indeed beating expectations. We were also expecting a slowdown. We did not get that. This is basically in line with May, which was revised higher. It's also good news. The unemployment rate was expected to go up.
Again, expected to be much higher. Unemployment rate coming down. All of it good. And you wonder why the latest polls show Donald Trump actually seeing more support among the Republican base than, gosh, any Republican president in modern history. This is wild. I mean, we're talking bigger than Reagan.
I mean, every politician would like this number here, especially to see it go up. How about compared to other presidents who were Republicans?
Yeah, it's history making. It's history making. What are we talking about here? So why don't we look back? We have all the presidents, Republican presidents, going back over the last 35, 36, 37 years. What are we talking about? GOP, who strongly approved 5 months in. Look at this. George H.W. Bush 41, 46%. Bush 43, 59. You see Trump, the first term, 53. But look at this. 63%. He beats all the other Republicans on the board here. And I was looking even back since Reagan. And get this, Donald Trump beats Ronald Reagan when it comes to the strongly approved 5 months. And of course, Reagan was coming off that high after that assassination attempt. So the bottom line is Donald Trump is making history with the Republican base. He is more beloved by this Republican base than any Republican base loved any GOP president 5 months in. It is history making.
Wow. Okay. So huge wins. CNN even has to admit that. But this is what happens. You know what? Again, I go back to, I'm just kind of a policy dork, and you have me on the policy. And so when you put the right policies in place, I realize it's going to make a lot of people kind of upset. The Letitia Jameses of the world that are making sure for political purposes, they are the enemy of Trump only because, think about it, only because she sees it as a path forward to fundraising, not because she's actually doing anything to help her state or help the city of New York. I say the city of New York. She keeps forgetting that she's got a whole bunch of other people out there, right? In the state of New York that really don't have a whole lot of use for her. Because you see, what may go down okay in Manhattan is not going down in the rest of the state. And you look at the latest polling data, and she's going to be in some trouble. I kid you not. I mean, they're talking about whether or not Schumer is going to be in trouble. The one that's going to be in trouble, well, besides Kathy Hochul, who's also going to be in a whole lot of trouble. And by the way, Kathy, Leticia, they've both been sued, along with the head of the DMV, by none other than Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi making it clear that they're not going to put up with this at DOJ. In fact, she said something rather similar about Karen Bass. They've also gone after Karen Bass, the mayor, if you would, of Los Angeles, out there in Lefty, California, because the mayor of Los Angeles is doing the same kind of junk that they were doing vis-a-vis the sanctuary city stuff they were doing in the state of New York. And here's what Pam Bondi said on New York.
This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go back to this. You guys have heard me say this before. You've got the Naturalization Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. The Congress shall have the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. So this, in other words, gives the federal government the total authority to determine who's going to become a citizen, and by implication, of course, who may come into the country and remain in the country. And the courts have looked at this over and over again. They consistently have interpreted this to support federal control over immigration laws, not just naturalization. So it's been looked at, it's been decided before. In fact, you've also got the Foreign Affairs and National Sovereignty Implied Powers Clause. And this was looked at vis-a-vis or in respect to immigration in 2012, actually, in Arizona. And what was decided was, once again, the federal government had the power here. So, you know, I'm a small, limited power person. Fundamentally, that's what I strongly believe in. So you don't want to have a big, bloated federal government that has all the power. But there's certain things that you kind of got to say, okay, somebody's got to take a stand. And in this case, you've got people saying we have to take a stand. Donald Trump and the entire GOP saying we have to take a stand when it comes to the issue of immigration. And we are taking a stand. And by the way, this shouldn't be so revolutionary. I mean, don't forget, it was Barack Obama, of course, who was out there and said, I'm going to deport people. He was deporting 1,000 people a day. And he said, the law is the law is the law. Okay, that's just what the law is. And yet, for some reason, the AOCs of the world, the Letitia Jameses of the world, the Kathy Hochuls of the world, and the LaMonicas of the world somehow think that this is Tom Homan's fault or Donald Trump's fault, and that, you know, somehow they're the ones that are in violation of the law. I got news from, not the case. Not the case, AOC.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Yeah, Tom didn't really go for that. We have played this for you before, but I'll just summarize. He's basically like, you were in diapers when I was doing this, okay? You don't intimidate me. That's not going to fly. And so AOC is, I think, slowly but surely learning she doesn't really have a leg to stand on here. So she's inverting it for political purposes. Now saying that somehow it's the GOP that's against legal immigration. This is a bizarre turn, but she's searching, right? She's got to find something.
About how this is about illegal versus legal immigration. They are attacking legal status and removing legal status. The Republican majority is anti-legal immigration in the United States. And I want to make that very clear, and I yield back.
Well, Mamdani, Mamdani, I'll get it right at some point, hopefully by the time he leaves New York. He's being threatened potentially with arrest, as we explained earlier. You've got AOC under investigation. You've got Letitia James awaiting her big indictment. You've got LaMonica McGiver. You remember LaMonica, the lady in red, right, out in New Jersey, really taking it to town, throwing the weight around and giving new meaning to that there. And she was indicted for this, and she's pleading not guilty. But if you look at the tape, guys, and I think we have it here, it kind of looks like, well, I don't know, to me, that she was up to something, just something. So the reality is you've got a new team on the ground, and this new team means business. And that's what the Democrats are trying to come to terms with right now. And this is not about, they'll go fascism, this, that, and the other. I'm like, this is law and order, okay? You have a federal government for a reason. You can't have 20 million people come in the span of 4 years. Why would you do that? You don't even know who's here. From a national security standpoint, it doesn't even make any sense. That has to change. And you know what? It is changing, and it will continue to change. And that is a good thing. As for the communist trying to get his way, weasel his way into New York City, this one actually does scare me. I'm going to full up admit it, because this guy has some really radical policies, and we're talking Venezuela 2.0. Well, guess what? It didn't work in Venezuela. It's not going to work in New York City. I know what's going to happen. They tried this. Didn't Hollande give this a shot in France? And what happened? Everybody moved out. Nobody wanted any part of it. So they lost all the millionaires and billionaires that they were trying to tax. It didn't work. It's not going to work in New York City either. And you have this little thing called the Constitution, if you would, on our side, which kind of brings me to something rather important. the Constitution. Here we are celebrating the 249th win and year for America, right? We've got a lot of winning going on. The Democrats do have new threats. Trump is admitting and knowing that, you know what, this is just Win City, as he promised it would be. And I think that the Democrats are going to have to start thinking through new avenues of approach, right? Because do not forget, the way we approached this country, what we decided from the very beginning in terms of the founding fathers was that we wanted to create an economic miracle. And that economic miracle turned out to be the greatest economic miracle that has existed in history. And you know why? Because it gave the power to the people. For the first time in history, Americans, anybody that was here, they didn't have to be part of the noble class. They had a chance to own property. And if you go back to the words of John Adams, he said that property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. When you look at what they put into the Fifth Amendment, when you look at, even Ben Franklin and what he insisted, or James Madison also making a big point that we needed the property protection. Ben Franklin took it to intellectual property protection. I mean, these guys were way ahead of their times. And this was revolutionary and completely different because it used to be the nobility, like the AOCs of the world, were handing everything out. That's not the way it is anymore. The way America has created prosperity and become the engine of growth for the entire world is by offering legal protections to people by way of the Constitution. I look at the Fifth Amendment, which says, you're not to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. In other words, the government can't go in there. Mamdani, you can't go in there and just take everything you want. AOC, you just can't take your fair share just because you think it's your fair share. No. It's not the Obama line where you didn't build that. You better believe we all built it. And what you build, you ought to be able to keep. Because back in the European noble lands, before people set up America, you couldn't build what you kept, or you couldn't keep what you built. You just couldn't. That was unheard of because it all belonged to the monarch. All the land belonged to the monarch. If you had some great invention, that's going back to the monarch. So what incentive did you have? And these were the systems that were set up all over the world until some really smart people decided to do it a totally different way. And this country was founded upon not just freedom, religious freedom, freedom of speech, the First Amendment, for goodness sakes, it's the first, but think about the Fifth Amendment that guarantees your property rights. So when we look at socialism trying to creep in, we need to shut it out, to push it away, to keep America the great, beautiful country that it is. I am looking forward to some great fireworks today. I've got my patriotic shirt on. Oh, you can't see it in this shot now, can you? Let's see if I can fix that. I'm going to have to get rid of the lower third, and you still can't. Anyway, we've got a big flag on here today, and in keeping with the spirit, I wanted to play my rendition of the national anthem. You got to stick around for the high note, guys. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say Happy 4th to everyone. I hope you get a great barbecue on. I hope you're out to see some fireworks tonight. Celebrate what's good. And you know what? Hold it dear. It matters. I love all you guys. Thank you for all you're doing to make this channel the success it is. Thank you. You're committed. I'm committed. We are on the front lines of history and we're protecting it. I will see you back here throughout the weekend and, of course, live on Monday.